Hi everybody, welcome to the second edition of North Central Comics Club, where we will be talking about a bunch of cool stuff. I will be later in the show giving you a rundown of Thor, Love and Thunder, what I thought about that. We'll be talking New Japan Pro Wrestling Cross AEW Forbidden Door and Ring of Honor's Death Before Dishonor. I'll talk about Ric Flair's last match, which is coming up this weekend. Will his heart explode? Who knows? But before we get to that, before we get into the show, I do want to mention briefly that Alan Grant, a longtime Batman writer and Judge Dredd writer, passed away over the weekend. He was the writer who launched the Shadow of the Bat series back in the 90s, and he also wrote the Judge Dredd Batman crossover. Really important, specifically to me as a kid. I read a ton of his Batman comics. Brett, what else do you have on the horizon before we throw to your interview with Captain Canuck creator Richard Comley?
Well, sadly, we got to talk Saga and the season finale, what they're calling the season finale. So after a big 3-year break, we got some issues back, and now they're going to take another break. And then I'm going to give my official, I guess, North Central PA review of Elden Ring. We finally got to the end of it. I finally got to the end of it and got my platinum trophy. So I want to do a little bragging and tell you my thoughts on the game, and then we'll get into all the other fun stuff that we got to do this month.
Yeah. Also, before we throw to that interview, there was the Hershey Comic-Con held in Hershey, Pennsylvania on the 16th, and that was super fun. I spent way too much money. We have a photo gallery up on the site. I highly recommend anybody check it out. There was a lot of great cosplay. I filled in some gaps for my Walt Simonson Thor run and started picking up some issues of Tomb of Dracula again. Spent, again, way too much money, an inordinate amount. But let's get to Brett's interview with Captain Canuck co-creator Richard Comley. We went down to our friends in South Williamsport, Isle of Comics, to do an interview with Richard Comley, and Brett wound up getting a couple of things signed.
Yeah, we'll get to see the whole interview. We touch on basically Captain Canuck's entire run, the whole creation process with Richard Comley. Super interesting stuff, but we did luck out. He got to sign a poster for us. We got an issue signed, we got a trade signed right here, and then we got this beautiful comic right here that he gave us. It was a really fun interview, and I hope you guys enjoy.
We should take that to Wellsboro next month and try and get somebody to do a cover for it.
Yeah, we should.
We should do that. Anyways, so we will be back after the break, after Brett's Richard Comley interview. Woo!
And Jeremy Stout, and we're bringing a special edition of the comic book column to you this week. I am with our special guest, Richard Comley, the creator of Captain Canuck and the man who single-handedly saved comic books in Canada. I just have a few questions for you. Knowing the origins of Captain Canuck, can you talk to us a little bit about the decision to self-publish and what kind of impact that had on the Captain Canuck series?
Well, remember, I'm in Canada, so never even dawned on me to approach DC or Marvel, even though I was well aware of them. I wasn't a comic book collector before I started Captain Canuck, so I mean, I'd read comic books, but I just didn't know the world all that well, and I had to learn fast. But I decided to self-publish. I was talked into it really by an accountant, and I had a Canadian publisher who was interested in publishing it. It was Harlequin Romance, which is a Canadian company. Some people down here have heard of Harlequin Romance because I think they ship their novels all over the world. But so they were interested, but like I said, I was convinced that the better approach would to hold all the rights myself and just publish it myself. So, and that's why I went that route.
If my history is right, the original name, the very, very original, was Captain Canada, and then you came up with Captain Canuck, or maybe that was pitched.
Well,
but how did you come up with the name Captain Canuck?
Ron Leishman, who I consider the co-creator, is the guy. I met him in 1971 at church. I met him, and so he was a cartoonist. He so we would get together, and basically what he said to me was, we should have a Canadian superhero, and we should have a comic book series about this Canadian superhero. And we met a number of times to discuss it, and I was sold on the idea. Now, Ron kind of left the scene at that point. He went on to serve a mission. We're Latter-day Saints. He went on to serve a mission for the church and go on and become a school teacher. And so I started basically with a $7,000 loan, or line of credit, I should say, and started publishing it. But no, Captain Canuck, I think, was our first choice. We vacillated between Captain Canada and Captain Canuck for a while, but then I saw basically what happened. What convinced me to call him Captain Canuck was, I went into a department store in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and there was a sweatshirt. It was literally a Superman drawing, and somebody had removed the S, and underneath it said Captain Canada. And I said, okay, we're done.
Okay.
Decision made.
Yeah.
And we're so much happier with Captain Canuck anyways. So.
Well, take me through those first 3 issues and the time when you leave, because the 3rd issue, if my memory serves me correct, left the cliffhanger where we were going to find out Captain Canuck's identity, and then there was the 3-year hiatus. What was that like, kind of seeing the interest in the comic and wanting to get that 4th issue out?
Yeah. Well, remember, I had a $7,000 line of credit.
Yeah.
So and each issue, the print runs were 200,000 copies of each issue back then, because it was almost, I would say, 95% of all the distribution was mass market newsstand sales, because there was very few comic book shops in 1975, and so. I basically kind of ran out of money, and after issue number 3, no more funds to work with. I got an offer to run a newspaper in southern Alberta, so my 2 artists went with me. We were hoping to eventually find the funding, find a new investor, and eventually I did, but that was 76, and in 79 we came out with, I actually was in early 79, we were eventually, I got investors, and we published the next issue, which was 4, which was already ready to go.
Yeah. Well, now you get to this point, and take me through his reveal, calling him Tom Evans. Did anything go into the name, or how did you choose his name?
I actually did not start writing Captain Canuck until late 1974. The first issue came out was actually released in May of 1975. And, I was doing so much other stuff, and I kept putting off the writing, and because that was the hardest part of this whole process. Looking for advertisers, making deals with printers. I had to teach myself how to do comic book style artwork and storytelling too, because that was kind of new to me, and but eventually I just said, okay, I've got to make some decisions here. I need characters, I need names, I need storylines, and I just put my head down and went to work. So there was no, run into a guy named Tom, we'll do that stuff.
Okay. When you get into where you guys are now, and I think it was it gets up to 15 issues in the series, and you can kind of complete the circle where he gets put back in time to 1980.
Yeah.
Did you ever think throughout this entire process that you would be able to get to this point and complete the original Captain Canuck's journey? You're so busy just trying to get it done that you just don't. I don't know. You're too focused on the present and what you got to get done that I'm just not thinking about 10 years in the future or whatever. So, Captain, a brief overview of the history. So basically, 1980,
late 1980 was the end of the original series, what I call the original series. And I didn't do the new series, the Captain Canuck Reborn, until 93. I started working on it in 92. Again, another investor, and then and I did a newspaper strip then too, and then that basically ended in 96. I did another 2-issue series. I did well, can't call it a series, but and then I licensed it to two brothers who did a 4-part series, and then in 2014 we did the summer special, the beginning of Chapter House's publishing reign, you might say.
So you see it all now in the current state of comic books. What are kind of your goals for the future of Captain Canuck?
Well, I mean, I'm hoping, like I'm working on, actually what I'm working on right now is an 8-page story, which is a chapter that bridges what took place in issue number 15, which is all done by George Freeman, and the story that's in the summer special of 2014, and I've got an 8-chapter bridge that will go with that 13-page story and will come out as Captain Canuck number 16. So we want to, ideally we'd like to continue the original Captain Canuck storyline, but then there's other things being done with the new Captain Canuck, the new look, the new costume, the new backstory, all of that stuff. So we'll have both of those streams going. And of course, Fatty's got all kinds of ideas. He's got, Captain Canuck Beyond, so I mean, he's got artists and writers doing other stuff with it. So yeah, I mean, there is going to be animation. There's the web series that was successful, that won an award, that was popular. We are now working with an animation studio in Toronto to do a TV series.
Okay.
There's a live action TV show that's been in discussion for years, and I think that'll eventually get into production, in a year or two. So hopefully all of that will happen before I'm dead. You know what I mean? It'd be nice to see it while I'm on this side of the grass, rather,
Yeah. Awesome. Well, hey, there you go. So there's all our updates on Captain Canuck. There's plenty of history you guys need to go check out. And for our special guest, Richard Comley, thank you so much for taking your time to talk to us. We really, really appreciate it.
All right, and we are back. Hope you enjoyed our interview from the Great White North of South Williamsport. But we have some comics that we recommended to each other to read. I recommended that Brett read the first arc of the Donny K. Cates Hulk series with Ryan Ottley. And Brett recommended that I read
Chicken Devil. One of my favorite comic books that have recently come out. Amazing origin story. But what did you think of it?
I thought it was super cool. I mean, the thing that I think that really works about this book as like a humor book is that it knows when to take itself seriously to heighten the joke of a man pulling off revenge in a chicken suit. Like, for a man murdering a whole bunch of dudes in a chicken suit, it takes itself seriously, and that makes it even funnier to me. But what I really love about this is I think the lettering is just phenomenal. And I'm blanking on the letterer's name right now, but he is great.
Letterer is...
Oh yeah, Hassan Osman Alokhu. I believe he also does a Panel by Panel, which is a great YouTube channel that you should all definitely check out. He breaks down like the visual storytelling craft of comics really well. But yeah, I think his lettering in this is phenomenal. The colors are great. It's like unique. It's totally unique. It's unlike anything that's coming out right now, and I can't wait for the second four-issue series to launch.
I gotta say, one thing I liked about it too is Mitch, the lead character, is like the plainest dude to be stuck in such a ridiculous comic book, and origin story, because
Yeah.
that's ultimately what I think it is. So
Yeah.
we'll definitely be seeing more Chicken Devil, I think.
And also something that I thought, as somebody who worked at KFC for multiple years, I know the pain of those terrible fryers and them breaking all the time. So.
And some of the extras are pretty cool.
Yeah, the menu is great.
Yeah,
Super funny stuff in there.
They really do. Yeah, it's just overall really good. The variant covers are very cool in this one too.
Yep. So I recommended Brett read this because he's like a huge Donny Cates guy, and I also just think Ryan Ottley's art is just killer in this. So what did you think, Brett?
I got this was such an amazing surprise for me. I like Donny Cates. Anybody who's seen me talk comic books for North Central PA knows how much I like Donny Cates. The storytelling is top notch. It basically is 3 different, I want to say stories, but they're all connected. Bruce Banner is piloting a ship that is the Incredible Hulk that's being fueled by the Incredible Hulk's rage. If you want to see a comic book where Hulk fights every Marvel superhero imaginable and rips them to shreds, this is it, because Ryan Ottley delivers the full page artwork in it is absolutely amazing. And what's really cool about this is I think because of the way the story's set up, you really get to see 2 guys shine because the story is so well done and airtight. And then with Ryan Ottley's artwork and giving him full pages to show the Hulk going to town on some of these Marvel superheroes, it just really works for me. And it's the first Hulk series I've really sat down and read, and I really enjoyed it. If I was rating this out of 5 stars, I would give it 5 without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, I think this stuff is great. I mean, I've been a huge Ryan Ottley fan. This is actually my first ongoing with Donny Cates. Like, I've read a few of the one-shots he's done or like tie-in books to events, but I've never like sat down and read a run of his. I hear great things about the Venom stuff, but what really drew me to this was like I love Ryan Ottley's work. I've been a huge fan of it since his days on Invincible, which I guess really wasn't that long ago. But but like I just can't say enough nice things. I think he is the top superhero artist going right now, especially when it comes to just big bombastic fight scenes. Like, he draws these grisly knockdown, drag-out punch fights like nobody else in comics, and it is a true joy to watch, to just look at that man's work. I'm super excited. I think the current arc right now with the Thor crossover is a little bit of a bummer. I wish that Hulk got a little bit more time on his own before he immediately got shunted off into another crossover. But I'm really enjoying this. I think the concept of Bruce Banner piloting the Hulk's body from the command center in his mind and having the Hulk psyche trapped in the engine room to fuel the Starship Hulk through its rage is just a really fun concept. And I think that as far as like going from Immortal Hulk to this, they couldn't be more different. And I think that that's really smart because you don't want to come off of that like super acclaimed run that was great with Immortal Hulk and then just try and recapture that again. So try and do something completely different, and this is that.
My personal highlights included, Donny Cates is so good at knowing the histories of the characters that he's writing about and just throwing a monkey wrench in the whole thing. But my Ryan Ottley highlight for this one was, and I'm not giving anything away, but Hulk fighting a giant Wolverine who's dressed in his original Wolverine costume and getting his claws ripped off and stabbed with them. It's as good as it sounds.
Yeah, it's cool as hell. So, do you want to talk about the books that we didn't recommend to you for each other, but brought just to talk about that we've been buying?
Yeah, I guess I'll start with, I think, one that everybody knows. Saga has sadly come to its season finale, which Fiona Staples and Brian K Vaughn have promised that it's not going to be the 3-year hiatus that we had with the last run. I personally thought the hardest thing that they had to do with this was somehow after 3 years keep a series running and keep it the same as it has been. They delivered. They delivered an emotional 6 issues. I don't want to give away the ending and how things hit on the finale, but if you have read that, you know what happens and how emotional it is. I remember reading it the first time. I got the goosebumps. I got a tear in my eye. Brian K Vaughn is just absolutely a gem right now in the comic book world, and this series isn't going to do a lot to tie up some of the loose ends, but it really is pushing this series into a really, really fun direction, and it just is so sharp and so on point. And even after 3 years, my worry was these 6 issues were going to be kind of a letdown, and it just has not. It's still as good as it's ever been, and I highly recommend that anybody that's a fan of good storytelling pick these comics up.
Yeah, man, I need to catch up. I'm like 30 issues behind, but I definitely need to catch up. Is that the only book you had to talk about?
Well, I'm still, I mean, I know we talked about it last time. One other, and I'll be real quick about it, but one significant thing that did happen is Gunslinger Spawn's approaching 11 issues next month, but King Spawn actually hit 12. So we're 1 year in. They've kind of had a complete run, a whole year of King Spawn. And if you're not into any of these Spawn issues, there are 4 absolute gems of a series going on right now between Scorched, Gunslinger, King, and then the original Spawn. And they're still all $2.99 an issue.
I know we're definitely going to be talking about that Batman Spawn crossover that's coming out later in the fall. That'll definitely be, like, that was just announced at SDCC with like, Greg Capullo and Tom McFarlane re-teaming. I'm excited about that. But for me, I know I promised last issue. We're not comics. Listen, if you ever think that it's a great idea to wear a Garfield onesie for an offhanded bit because you're talking about a Comic-Con for 30 seconds, don't do it. It's like 1,000 degrees in this thing. But anyways, I promised I'd talk about Captain America, so I brought the current series. These are the first issues. We are 2 issues in on both of them. The Sentinel of Liberty one is written by Colin Kelly and Jackson Lanzig with art by Carmen Carnero, and the Symbol of Truth, the Sam Wilson book, is written by Tochi Onyebushi and with art by R.B. Silva. And man, I just think these things are dull. Like, I think they typify the current general problem that I have with a large part of the Marvel line, in that it feels like a copy-paste job of what they're doing in the MCU right now. And it's just like, it's all shit you've seen, all things you've seen before. I didn't swear. Like, how many times do you need Steve Rogers to learn that, oh no, this Captain America thing isn't what it once was, and I don't know if I could do this anymore. The shield's not the symbol I thought it was. And there's a nefarious organization working in the background, and there's all this generic spy craft. It's like, dude, I've been reading the Ed Brubaker run of Captain America since 2005. Can we do something else? Like, I think the art in Sentinel of Liberty is pretty solid from Carnero. But other than that, I'm not really feeling it. I don't know how long it's gonna remain on the pull list. As for the Sam Wilson book, the Symbol of Truth, narratively it's slightly better. I mean, it's doing the Sam Wilson thing where he's butting up against military brass and he doesn't know if he could color inside the lines and all that. The problem that I have with this book, more so than the narrative, even though it's kind of dull, is I just think R.B. Silva's work is just terrible. The man is like, what if Jim Lee had no energy or interesting perspective at all? It's just the blandest looking book in the world. And that's a real shame, because the second issue had like a great fun visual premise of like Deadpool and Captain America having to fight their way through 30 floors of Hydra bad guys, and it just looked like absolute trash. I also brought the first issue of Chip Zdarsky and Jorge Jimenez's Batman run, which started with 125 this month. I thought this was really great. It feels a lot like Chip Zdarsky's first issue on Daredevil, with Batman being framed for a murder he didn't commit, but it feels different enough from that book that I think that if you have read that one, it's still worth picking up. And Jorge Jimenez's art is just top-notch as always. I thought that man was the best Superman artist for a while, and if you have not read that annual from 2018 that he did, where Superman fights Swamp Thing, I highly recommend you pick that up. But I've wanted him to draw Batman on an ongoing and consistent basis for so long, and I know he did a good bit of the Josh Williamson run, but I'm hoping he draws way more of this. It has the down and gritty street level detective stuff that I like from Batman. Highly recommend this. More Chip Zdarsky, but this time he's writing and drawing this. And this is public domain. He did this for his Substack last year, but it's coming out in print now. It's about the struggles with creators and getting the rights to the books to the characters they create, and how these characters are just becoming part of these like content mills that don't even care what they're putting out and don't care about the people who make the content that they produce. And I just think it's really sweet, really tender. It has a great family dynamic going on it with between our main character and his dad, who created the superhero Imminent Domain, which he then at the end of this issue finds out that he owns the rights to. So we will see where that goes from here. And the last book that I want to talk about is Batman Superman World's Finest, which is in its 5th issue. There's one more issue left in the current story arc. It's Mark Waid's triumphant return to Marvel or DC after more than a decade at Marvel at this point. I think that man, he writes the best Superman of any writer going. He just so functionally understands the character of Superman that I'm so happy to have him back writing the character. Also, look at this cover. It's so cool. Dan Mora is just one of the cleanest artists working today. He has a clean line that shows great, big, dynamic figures and incredible action. And this feels exactly like the Silver Age style throwback that I want. And you even get Batman back in his new look suit designed by Carmine Infantino from the 60s that ran all the way to like 1995. And that's my personal favorite Batman. So this book I cannot recommend more. You got Batman and Superman, you got the Doom Patrol, you got all these villains coming in, and you got a new villain, the Devil Nezha. It's great. I think you should pick it up. That's all for my pull list this week. So let's get into our pop cultural hoot nanny, which is, I guess, what we're calling the place where we put everything else.
Yeah.
Brett, did you want to talk Elden Ring first, or do you want me to go into my wrestling nonsense and Thor?
We can go into Elden Ring. I'll be real quick about it. I luckily got through the game. It was insanely difficult, as all From Software titles are. Got the platinum, got everything in the game, explored every nook and cranny of the lands in between, and I don't think I'm going to say anything that anybody who pays attention to video games doesn't know. This game is absolutely fantastic. I thought I'd be done with it after I got the platinum. I hopped right back into it for another playthrough. Character creation's top notch. You can make your own character, set the adventure at your own pace. I mean, it is absolutely a juggernaut, and we'll see what God of War Ragnarok looks like in November, but this has my vote for Game of the Year for 2022, and that's my final verdict on it. Go play it.
How would you say for somebody like me, like myself, who is terrible at From Software games, and every time that they have tried, they have bounced off because it's scary and too intimidating because it's hard.
Well, so that's the thing, is the FromSoft community has been a little upset because the diehard From Software fans have felt like the game has been on the easier side. I still maintain that it's insanely difficult compared to most AAA titles. The leveling is much more friendly. The grinding isn't as necessary as most other From Software games, and the hardest boss is optional, so you don't have to play it to beat the game. But all in all, it's a very accessible adventure, but still one worth having that's going to test your gaming skills.
Okay. So you would recommend that I
recommend
give
it
it a
to
try.
everybody.
Okay.
Anybody.
So, well,
Online co-op, so if you got a buddy like me, you can get some help on it.
maybe I'll drag Brett into that so he can help me beat the game when I buy it. But let me talk about my wrestling nonsense. Because AEW and New Japan held their crossover event, or I guess crossover. We're in Comics Land still. Their cross-promotional event with Forbidden Door at the end of June. And that featured Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Jon Moxley for the interim World Championship, AEW World Championship, after CM Punk had to withdraw from the match due to an unspecified lower body injury that nobody's talking about, because why would you ever release injury information? But yeah, that match was killer. Jon Moxley and Tanahashi knocked it out of the park. Blood and guts everywhere, as Vince McMahon would like to say. Bye, you evil old man. See you in hell someday. That's Vince McMahon, not Tanahashi or Moxley. But that match ruled. You had the perfect debut for Claudio Castagnoli with the match against Zack Sabre Jr., which was also changed because that was supposed to be Bryan Danielson versus Zack Sabre Jr., but Bryan Danielson had a concussion. That we do know. But so he had to withdraw. But man, that was fantastic. Just what a great way to debut, just debut an absolute superstar. And I'm hoping that Tony Khan knows what he has. I think he does, and will push Claudio to the moon. Unlike the decade he spent in WWE, just jerking the curtain in the mid card as Cesaro.
Jerking the curtain.
Jerking the curtain. Then this weekend, Tony Khan also held ROH Death Before Dishonor, where Claudio Castagnoli did secure the ROH world title from Jonathan Gresham. So we'll see what happens with that. That means the Blackpool Combat Club, the faction that both Jon Moxley and Claudio Castagnoli are in, will now have both world titles between ROH and AEW. We'll see what comes of that. Last little wrestling thing. If anybody's interested, I guess SummerSlam is also happening on Saturday, but why would you watch a WWE show? You have better things to do. But what you might want to watch is the last match of Ric Flair strutting the aisle one last time. Woo! Where Ric Flair will be tagging with his son-in-law Andrade against, that's right, the real Double J, Jeff Jarrett.
Yeah, I know Jeff Jarrett.
And Jay Lethal, a man who is most notable for doing a Ric Flair impression. Will Ric Flair's heart explode? I asked in the beginning. Who knows? We'll find out on Sunday, and I will certainly be sure to talk about it in August. All right, now let's talk about Thor, man. I was gonna write a review. Have you seen Thor?
I have not seen Thor
Okay,
yet.
so I was gonna write a review for Thor, but I went and saw it, and then I was just like, man, these are just all the same bland, nothing CG-filled messes that might as well not exist after you exit the theater. Within 15 minutes, you would be hard pressed to be like, so what happened in that movie? And I would just be like, I don't know, man. Thor hit a guy with a hammer. It was whatever. But like, so I was gonna write a review on the site, like I did with Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, but then I was like, it would just be a copy-paste job.
Yeah, I gotta say that, like, I haven't seen the new Thor, but this is my issue and why I kind of jumped off the Marvel or the MCU bandwagon is all the movies are the same.
Yeah, dude,
it's the same formula.
And they're
over
all
over.
shot in the same 3 parking lots in Atlanta. It's like Natalie Portman said before the movie came out, like, one of the most emotional scenes you wouldn't believe was shot in a parking lot in Atlanta. And I was like, listen, I have trouble believing any part of this is emotional. I have no trouble believing that you shot this in a Best Buy parking lot. That is absolutely 100% on brand. Thor: Love and Thunder is one of the ugliest looking movies I have seen in some time. And I'm forced to watch an inordinate amount of bad found footage films made by like high school students because that's what my girlfriend's into. And this movie looks so cheap, so chintzy, like nobody put any effort or gave a shit. And I'm not trying to like drag the... Sorry for swearing again.
Oh, you're fine. We have a mature audience.
We have a mature audience. We'll put the explicit tag on it because I cuss too many times. But like, so, like it's like nobody seemed to care, and I don't want to like drag the effects artists who are like just put through the ringer if you haven't read the recent reporting where it's like they work long hours, have no time to like actually. And like they work on these deadlines where it's just like you just turn things around and then on to the next project. And like of course it looks bad. Of course all these effects don't hold up because you're not letting these artisans actually craft anything. And it also doesn't help that like the director seemed to be uninvolved with any of the effects. If 90% of your movie is effects, I would like the director to have some vision or thought process into it. But no, man, it's just Kevin Feige pumping out these things in perpetuity, and it's just so heart-wrenchingly depressing just watching these things just be paraded out. And like, they cost $100+ million, but I don't see how they spend that. They look just awful. Anyways, that's a real chipper way to bring things to a close here.
Well, I will say, if you're looking for a good show, I actually just completed season 3 of The Boys.
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic. Show's back on track, and it is not CGI. It's definitely not CGI and done in a parking lot. Outstanding. So if you want something good to maybe cleanse your palate of Thor, go check out The Boys. And much like our show here, it's very explicit.
Yeah.
Maybe a little more.
Yeah. Well, listen, I've been watching the 90s Swamp Thing TV show for my comics film thing, and let me tell you that. A lot more fun than the Marvel movies. And they're only 22 minutes long. A man was a bird in the second episode. Or a bird became a man, but still had one wing, and he just... It was very weird. You got it. I'd recommend Swamp Thing.
I know we're talking about in August.
Yeah. We'll talk about Swamp Thing in August. The Swamp Thing USA Network TV show. Up all night, baby. But anyways, that brings us to a close for this show. If you have any suggestions or just want to have some conversations across the world of comics and pop culture, you can email me at jeremys@NorthcentralPA.com. And Brett
C@NorthcentralPA.com. Make sure to check out Isla Comics for all your comic needs in our area. They'll hook you up and get you all set and on your way. Go read a comic. Send us something interesting about it.
All right. Peace.
At UPMC, we're pioneering new ways to treat cancer, and we're working to prevent it. We're advancing new technology to look more closely at disease and helping you breathe easier. We perform the world's first heart-liver transplant, and we're experts at keeping your heart beating strong. We're a global team of more than 90,000, advancing care everywhere and delivering it closer to you. UPMC, life-changing medicine.